Number 15. No Moms Allowed. It's clear to anyone who has seen more than one Disney movie that there is a strange or extreme lack of mother characters. In fact, most of the mothers are killed either over the course of the film, or it is explained that they are already dead at the beginning of the story. This is likely related to the fact that Walt Disney's own mother died. He blamed himself for her death because she died in a carbon monoxide poisoning accident in the home that he bought her and his father. His guilt and loss was always showcased in his work, and it's actually become a tradition that Disney has kept alive long after Walt passed. Number 14. It's a Small World suicide. There's an urban legend that began in roughly 1999. This legend claims that one day at Disneyland, the It's a Small World ride was suddenly shut down without warning. The lights were turned on and the ride was fully deactivated. Employees rushed everyone out of the ride and gave no explanation as to why the ride was shut down. There was one woman who happened to pull out her disposable camera as they left the ride. She snapped a few photos without thinking it through. She only planned to empty the film roll. However, weeks later, after the film was developed, she discovered that one of the pictures showed something truly terrifying. It was a young boy hanging from the rafters of the ride. He allegedly committed suicide when no one was looking, and no one noticed the hanging child until much later. There have also been claims that the boy did not kill himself, but rather just ran off and had some kind of accident which led to his hanging. Either way, the photo is haunting to see even once, and the story is just as disturbing. Number 13. Real skeletons. Shortly after Walt Disney's death in 1967, during the early days of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, real skeletons were used as opposed to props. This is because the Imagineer team thought that the prop skeletons were not convincing enough. The UCLA Medical School provided catheter skeletons to Disneyland to make the ride as realistic as possible. In later years, they eventually removed all of the real remains because word had gotten out, and guests complained that it made them extremely uncomfortable. The bodies were replaced with better props, due to word getting out about the creative alternative they had been using. However, rumor has it that some of the bones involved in the scenery are still real, such as those in the shape of a skull and crossbones that hang above the skeleton lying in bed. Employees and visitors claim this one to be one of the most haunted Disney locations due to the remains that are still there, and the spirits of those still tortured by having once been part of a Disney theme ride. Number 12. Suicide Mouse. In today's media, there are tons of modern urban legends, rumors, and creepypastas that revolve around the idea of lost episodes of our favorite childhood shows and cartoons. However, none can compare to the original lost episode that sent chills down everyone's spine. The story of the Lost Mickey Mouse episode, also referred to as Suicide Mouse, features a black and white Mickey walking past a repeating background, while white noise plays continuously over the scene. At 2 minutes in, it cuts to black and that's it. Or so it seems, but if you can handle waiting until the 6th minute of the cartoon, it will reappear. Only now the white noise has been replaced by the distant murmur of many voices. The background Mickey was walking against has begun to distort in ways painful for the human eye to see, and Mickey himself is smirking unpleasantly in an almost evil fashion. After that, the cartoon turns into something straight out of a nightmare. A scream starts to get louder and louder as Mickey himself seems to decay, his eyeballs falling out and his grin getting wider. Impossible colors begin flickering across the screen. Burning rubble rises in the background. After this, no one really knows what happens, because the only Disney employee to ever view the cartoon in full allegedly committed suicide shortly after. The only thing he left was a note describing the final frame. He claims it was a piece of Russian text that translates as, "The sights of hell bring its viewers back in." Whether or not this story is real, it sparked an entire genre of lost episodes that are straight from hell, and it's somewhere out there on the internet, waiting for you to find it. Number 11. The Great Lemming Lie. In Disney's 1958 true life adventure titled White Wilderness, the most popular scenes were those of lemmings jumping to their death. The Academy Award-winning nature documentary was about wildlife in the snow-covered northern regions of the North American continent. Although the film showcased lemmings, small rodent-like animals, leaping from cliffs into the ocean to drown, it was completely faked. The movie was shot in the Canadian province of Alberta, which is not a native habitat for lemmings and is landlocked with no outlet to the sea. The filmmakers had to import lemmings to Alberta for use in the documentary, and with use of camera angles, they made the few lemmings they had imported look like an entire horde of them. For the alleged suicide scene, the 9 filmmakers placed the rodents on turntables to create a migration effect and then hurled them off cliffs into the water, which they claimed to be the Arctic Sea, but was actually the Bow River. While lemmings do occasionally attempt to migrate, and they may die in the process, they have never actually shown suicidal behaviors. This was just Disney's sick attempt to make a better documentary than they had. Number 10. The Dead Bellhop. The Tower of Terror is one of the most popular rides at Walt Disney theme parks. The Drop Tower ride follows a theme of the Twilight Zone, ghosts, and other spectacularly spooky attractions. A famous urban legend that relates back to this tower is that of the dead bellhop who haunts the tower and its passengers. A bellhop was working Platform Delta, otherwise known as Platform D, and loading guests onto the attraction. Suddenly he just dropped dead on the spot, and his end came right on Platform D. Ever since this supposed death, the attraction is said to have major problems after hours on Platform D. Lights will flicker, the ride will freeze, and the holographic ghosts of the attraction won't be on their cue when they are set to appear on certain floors. There's even a video that surfaced of a maintenance team member riding the drop tower after hours to assure everything was going as planned. And in this video you can apparently see the dead bellhop sitting in a seat behind the passenger. No worries to Disney visitors, there's apparently nothing similar to this to have happened during hours of operation. Number 9. The Toy Story and The Shining. If you pay close enough attention over the course of Toy Story, you will find that it has eerie similarities with the popular Stephen King horror, The Shining. An example is the scene in Toy Story where Buzz and Woody are trying to escape Sid the Bully's house. You can see that the carpet in Sid's home is the same carpet with the exact same pattern as the one in the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. The most reoccurring similarity, however, is the number 237. It can be seen on a security camera, a garbage truck license plate, and the username of someone chatting with Woody online. This is in reference to room number 237 from the legendary horror. It is apparently not a coincidence though. Toy Story 3 director Lee Unkrich is a huge fan of The Shining and purposely added in the Easter eggs. However, in Toy Story 1, this was not done purposely. That's just a very creepy coincidence. Number 8. Underground Disney. Beneath Disney theme parks, there lies an underground tunnel system, which is more formally known as the Disney Utilidor, short for Utility Corridor System. The system is a part of Disney's backstage or behind-the-scenes area. They allow Disney employees and cast members to perform park support operations such as trash removal out of the sight of the guests to avoid ruining the illusion that is being created. The largest system of Utilidors are beneath Disney World's Magic Kingdom, but because of the water system issues, these tunnels were actually built at ground level, and the Magic Kingdom was built on top of that. This means that the park streets are elevated by 1 story. Parts are even at 3rd story level. The Utilidors are built on 9 acres of land, and the floor plan is a circle with a path down the middle. Many members that work in these tunnels report strange ghostly sightings and occurrences. Many even claim to have seen or heard Walt Disney himself. Number 7. The Ride That Ends in Hell. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride starts out as any fun and amusing theme park ride. Guests hop aboard miniature early 1900s multicolored motor cars and enter a recreation of Toad Hall from the popular movie The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. During this portion of the ride, the passengers get a view of artistic works commemorating characters from The Wind and the Willows. Towards the end of the ride, things take a strangely dark turn when passengers arrive at the ride's final scene. A cartoonish depiction of hell, not inspired by any scene in the movie or book. The entire room is heated, and the scenery features small devils who bounce up and down. Passengers also see a demon who resembles the judge from the courtroom scene. Near the end of the scene, a towering green dragon emerges and attempts to burn the riders to a crisp. A glowing light is seen in the back of its throat, and choking, coughing noises are heard while the motor car speeds away. Granted a reprieve, the passengers eventually escape to the ride's loading and unloading area, where they disembark. This portion of the ride isn't that scary. It's just a little unsettling that a ride at a children's amusement park would feature a hellish scene that has no relevance to the rest of the theme. Number 6. Walt Disney is Big Brother. When Disneyland was built in the early 1950s, Walt Disney owned an apartment on the second floor of the fire department on Main Street, so he could watch the guests in the park from a hidden viewpoint. After his death, the company decided to put a light in the window in Disney's memory, or rather to remind parkgoers that he is always watching. To further the point of Walt Disney being a real-life Big Brother, he made it a point to control as much as he could about the guest experience while at the park. He controlled what guests heard by using speakers placed throughout the park to discreetly play out music and sounds that specifically corresponded to each land. He also controlled what guests saw by designing most of Disneyland's buildings with forced perspective to make them seem larger. Forced perspective means the scale of the building grows smaller as its height grows. This makes it seem to be higher than it is. This is shown by the second floor of the castle. As you can see it is more squished than the other floors. Basically, Walt Disney was a supervisor and controlling king of his land. Number 5. Debbie Stone. In order to save for her college tuition, 18-year-old Debbie Stone applied for a summer job at Disneyland and soon landed herself as the hostess of a very popular dinner show. The ride, called Carousel of Progress, was redesigned to become a new attraction, America Sings. The ride was made out of 6 stages in the center of the building. The stages rotated in sequence so that the audience could experience each performance without moving. The performance consisted of a 24-minute show featuring 4 big musical acts. It was the job of the Disney hostess to stand on the left-hand side of each stage and greet the audience at the start of each show and bid them farewell at the end of each show. A fatal downfall of the design of the ride was that the walls moved towards each other on the left-hand side of the stage and closed in place to separate each theater from the other. On July 8, 1974, around 10:30 p.m., when the last show ended and the stages were shifting position in between the 45-second interval, a guest from the adjacent theater heard a horrible scream from the left side. When he and the operators rushed to the scene, they found a bloody and mangled Debbie Stone. She was crushed between the walls of the 2 theaters. After the gruesome incident, Disneyland closed the ride for 2 days, and the stage on which Debbie died remained closed for a year. However, they never made any sort of announcement or memorial for the young employee. They simply acted like it never happened and swept it under the rug as soon as possible. At least later, changes were made to the stages to make them safer for employees. The ride remained operative till 1988. Number 4. Beast is a psychopathic murderer. A fan theory that has been around for many years is about how Beast from the famous Beauty and the Beast was actually a killer who had no control over himself or his anger. In the beginning of the movie, you can tell that Beast has serious anger issues and does not know when to stop. This point is asserted and made even more haunting when Belle wanders off to a wing of the mansion that Beast had forbidden her from. She finds several pieces of broken and dismantled furniture. This is actually really sick considering that all of the furniture and dishware in the movie are made to be sentient living things by the same curse which made the Beast into what he is. This implies that Beast lost his temper and killed his friends, and just stowed their corpses away in a different part of the house. Number 3. Mouse Switch. It was reported by the New York Daily News that a man working as a chef at Disneyland Paris committed suicide in 2010. Before taking his own life, he wrote on his bedroom wall, "I don't want to go back to Mickey's house," in French. This was not the only suicide of a Disneyland Paris employee. In early November 2013, another employee tried to light himself on fire, but was stopped before any fatal damage could occur. Reports and stories show that employees of the park hate working there so much that they refer to it as Mouse Switch, which is a wordplay on the Auschwitz concentration camp. Several ex-employees reported that Disney officials threatened if they quit, they would make it nearly impossible for them to find work elsewhere. They were basically trapped in the happiest hell on earth. Although Disneyland Paris is the most popular tourist attraction in Europe, it has a pretty large body count. Aside from the employees offing themselves, there were also several accidental child deaths. It is unclear that Disney likes to keep the illusion that nothing ever bad happens at their parks, alive and kicking. However, they apparently don't feel the same about their employees. Number 2. Disney in Ashes. Assuming that Disney is considered the happiest place on earth, it makes sense that people would want to spend an eternity there. In 2007, a woman was caught scattering ashes while on a ride. She claimed it was baby powder. However, ashes are apparently spread so often at Disney World that employees automatically assumed it was not baby powder. The first recorded incident involving human ashes was in 1990 at the Haunted Mansion. The idea of spreading your loved one's burnt remains became continuously popular at the parks, to the point that employees now receive special training in dealing with the ashes. They are required to use special HEPA suits and vacuums in an attempt to remove any tiny particles of human remains from the air so that they don't enter the lungs of the visitors. Number 1. Sex crimes. Possibly the hardest secret to keep is that of all of the sex charges filed on employees of the Disney theme parks. Since 2006, there have been at least 35 known cases of sex charges against Disney employees, mostly in Florida. At least 32 of those charges resulted in convictions. Wherever you find children, you'll find sexual predators that want to be there, said Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd. One of the most infamous cases is that of 49-year-old Robert Kingsolver of Orlando. Kingsolver worked as a ride repair manager at Magic Kingdom until he was accused of attempting to meet a 14-year-old girl for sex in Lake County. Kingsolver's arrest was just one of many, approximately 22 that came during a sting operation. Many of the offenders caught allegedly brought condoms, knives, candy, video games, and even one brought a Happy Meal. Disney maintains that it has extensive measures in place to stop child predators before they're employed, including background checks and computer monitoring. The Disney theme park in Florida has about 70,000 employees, and it is nearly impossible to know who may or may not end up as an offender. There have also been several cases that were not focused around the sting operation of children being assaulted while at the theme park. However, as Disney likes to keep its dirty laundry hidden, there's little to no information on those roughly 45 cases.